Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to a wonderful, great episode on the Strategic Project Leader. That's right, you are in the right place. Here we help business analysts, project managers, and business leaders transform their careers and create something even more awesome, leveraging project management skills, but with a strategic focus. I am always excited to join you on a Saturday. It could be a morning or afternoon or an evening, depending on where you are all over the globe. I want to know exactly where you're joining us from today, because today is going to be extremely special because I have a wonderful guest who's going to be discussing something special with me. As you know, I am your host, Fola Alabi. A lot of people call me the Strategic Project Leader because I'm all about transforming people's lives. But I love the fact that I can do it with all the great project management skills that I have leveraged for over 2 decades. Today, we want to talk about how we can pretty much elevate beyond limitations. I have a leader who has been able to successfully do that. Goodness, she has been able to land the role of a chief of staff to the CEO of the Project Management Institute. As you know, when we talk about project management, the go-to for that knowledge and for everything project management they're becoming like the standard right now. That's a Project Management Institute. I want to welcome Lenka Pinco. She brings extensive international experience and proven track record of helping organizations achieve goals from digital transformation to leadership to organizational agility. Jesus, just bring it on. She holds a master's in computer science, software engineering from Charles University. And the fact that she's also in France, I told her, I hope she actually has my baguette today. But the key thing is that she brings not just live, but fresh perspective. And she wants to help you as that professional elevate and create something bigger and better. I am super excited this morning because, yes, it's one that we're going to be diving deeper. When I think about the PMO space, it's one that I have worked in for over 10 years as well, because my first love started as a PM, but I became a project management office leader. And so Pinco is going to be coming in to come and talk about it. Can you please give me a round of applause as we get her on stage? How are you doing this wonderful morning, Lenka Pinco?
Hi, Fola. Hi. How are you doing? I'm actually great. I'm in Paris, so it's afternoon here, and I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. That's great. It's definitely awesome and great to have you. And I want to know first off where everyone is actually joining me from, so that way we can get right into it. But before anything, I want to know, how did your love for project management, how did it start?
Yeah, I know. I announced it on LinkedIn that this is actually a funny story. So the truth is that I was still studying, finishing my university. I got my first job as analyst at consultancy company, and we were doing different projects for our clients. And I was 20 something, my first job, no experience basically, and I was assigned to a project for quite a big, very important client. And that was led, of course, by very experienced project manager. However, unfortunately, there were some issues, and he just, out of the blue, he left. And exactly. And then there was me.
And you were thrown into the deep end, right?
Yeah, I still remember that. And this happened more than 20 years ago. I still remember that. So he just left. And we were left there facing the client. And of course, we had to deliver, because it was like, no matter what, you have to deliver. And then, we just have to step up very fast, basically kind of like overnight with my colleague, because of course, we were waiting for another senior colleague from abroad to join us, but it took some time, couple of weeks. And, we had to keep the face in front of the client. And for me, I remember I kept telling myself, how is this possible? How is this ever done? And for me, that was the impulse to start learning about project management. And then later I stayed with the company, and we were also providing project management trainings for our other clients. And so I volunteered, and I said, I would like to be part of that. I would like to learn more. And so I became like a helper, like a junior support for our project management trainer. And that was amazing experience because we were talking with people who were training for project management, who were doing project management. We were doing workshops with them, and I just could learn and listen to their stories and understand more and more. Then later on, I did formal training, I did some certifications, and way later, I also did my PMP certification with Project Management Institute.
I love that. You have already dropped some great ideas there already. I could already hear that. You spoke about adaptability. You already said that. You came into a role and then, the PM left the company. But you had to be adaptable. And you said, we need to keep our face in front of the client. And so we're going to make sure that we are successful. It doesn't matter what happens, right? You pulled your sleeve up and say, I'm willing to learn. I'm going to volunteer. That's another thing I wrote down. He said, I'm going to volunteer myself and say, I want to learn this. I want to make myself that person that can fill and bridge the gap for our clients. And then you mentioned that you went ahead later on to get formal training and experience. You said, I wanted to be better at this. I want to get my certification. But it obviously shows a thread that you started more like an accidental project manager, as they say, right? You never really wanted to be a PM, but somehow you found yourself in that space. But you were one that I guess you were definitely curious. I already see the fact that you were one who felt that there was something more I could give. There's something more I could actually position myself. And that's a quality that strategic project leaders need to have. But let's not get that far too quickly. So I think about the fact that you're young in your career, you decided to do this. What exactly were the challenges that you faced? Through the deep end, you knew that failure was probably not an option, but you knew that you were going to just raise your hands up and do it. What were the challenges you faced?
Challenges that I faced. So first of all, I have to say, and I like that expression, accidental project manager. So I think that throughout my whole career, I never had a project management title as my official job position, but I was always delivering projects. So the challenges that I had at the beginning was really because I kind of like jumped into that. I wanted to learn by doing. So the challenge was, how do I get a client who will trust me enough that he will let me lead my project? So that was something which I needed to overcome. And I have to say, I was lucky enough. I found that client. And again, I still remember him. And these are really, old memories. And I came to him. And at that time, I was 25. And I remember that because he said it loud. And he said, Lenka, you are 25 and you claim that you can lead this project. And he was looking at me, and there were other C-level leaders in the room. And then he said, like, okay, I give you the chance, prove it. And this was very important because when you want to progress with your career, you need to get that chance. But I mean, once you get that chance, you need to prove it. You need to prove yourself. So you need to be ready. And for that, I was grateful at that moment that I was observing other leaders. I was learning how to do that. And then I had a chance to do it by myself, to lead my first project for that client. So, of course, it was successful. I learned again a lot more. And then for me, leading projects as part of delivery for my clients became routine.
Oh my goodness, I love the fact that I call that unconscious excellence. You see what I mean? It became routine, because you were prepared. You said that you were prepared for the role you wanted. You didn't just sit back and say, I'm just going to just hope and pray that luck happens. I'm going to just get my PM role and I'm going to be successful. I don't think success happens by accident. I feel that you have to orchestrate the outcome that you definitely want for yourself in your career. And when it came to preparation, Lenka, what were the steps? How did you prepare for this? What did you do that helped you become successful? As you said, when you were given a chance, you were successful. How did you prepare for this successful path?
Well, when I think about that, so first thing, of course, is that you need to learn the basics. So this is easier, right? Because there are trainings, there are books. Then what you need to get is also to gain experience. This is hard when you want to get a higher position, higher responsibility, and you don't have that particular experience yet, but you need it to be able to succeed. So what I was always doing, I was observing other colleagues, other leaders. I was trying to understand where is their success coming from? What do they do right? So it's a lot about listening, observing, and then you use that experience of your colleagues and you translate it in your situation. And then you say, okay, if I am in this situation right now, this is what I should do. Or sometimes this is what I should not do because I saw that it failed in some other case.
So you have to understand what success looks like from the lens of other leaders. And I think I love that because a lot of the time people say, let's fail. Failure is good. And I haven't got any problem with that. Experiments and, you learn from the mistakes. However, I always love the construct around starting from experience. Rather than even waiting to fail in the first place, we have so many examples of failures that have already existed. We have so many examples of successes. So rather than having to start from the level of just, oh, I'm going to go experiment now, I'm just going to start that. Before you get that far, why don't we go back and see, like, who are the leaders in front of us who have been able to do something that's really, really great and exceptional? Where did they start, as Lenka has said? What were the things, how did they make those decisions, right? What steps did they take to ensure that they determined the right path as well? How exactly, my next question would be, how did you pick those leaders? Because there's so many people talking at this moment, right? People are like, they're experts and people feel that this, someone said this is somewhere on my sound. Can you hear me clearly? Let me know if the interruption is actually gone. But I'm just going to hand it over to you. How did you pick the leaders that you had to, that you actually mirrored their experience? How did you pick them?
Yeah, and Fala, yes, I hear some noise in the sound, so I don't know if it's fine. Anyway,
okay, so, I'm gonna put you single so that I can try to fix that in the background. Just keep going.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so in the first part of my career, I was actually working in the consultancy business, and that means that we were delivering value for our clients. So I tried to understand which projects were successful, where basically clients were happy, what actually our clients considered a success. But later on, after 10 years in consultancy, I moved to a different job. I started to work for a company as internal manager, as internal leader. And this was a very different experience because it was not like that you delivered project and then moved to another one, which was the experience from the consultancy business. But in that situation, we delivered a project and then we had to live with outcomes of the project. We just could not leave. We just had to continue. And so I started to understand what business or what success looks like in this kind of circumstances, and then what the leaders and managers of the company, what do they consider successful? What is important and what do they actually expect from these projects? And the learning which I had at that time, that it was not that much about being on time or being on budget. That was kind of like expected, like, yes, you have to be on time, you have to be on budget, you have to do all the basic things. But what they were expecting was really like how it's going to help my business, how it's going to help the company. And so I started to learn how important it is to get the big picture so that you can influence decision makers and give them advice and be like their trusted partner, and to say, hey, if you change the scope of the project, if we do something differently, it will benefit you more than if we stick to the original script that was designed at the beginning.
I think it's awesome. First of all, can you guys hear me clearly? Is it better now?
Much better.
Fantastic. As you notice that with every project, right, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. But we've actually fixed that. And I love the fact that you have selected your leaders. I think you probably did a lot of research, right, to understand who are these peer people that we can definitely mirror. Who are the leaders who can help chart the path that you actually needed? And you started them pretty quickly, because I love the fact that Pierre is actually here. Thank you so much, Pierre, for being here this morning. Oh my goodness. Pierre Lamar, the CEO of PMO. He was awesome when I had him on. I know. No pressure, Lenka. Like, your boss is here and, but you'll be fine. You've got all the skills and everything. So just breathe. But the key though is, I love the fact, and I want to even just give him some flowers as well. When you have leaders who are definitely visionaries, And I think about even like when I started this whole podcast idea, like when I reached out to Pierre, and I'm like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, yes, let's have this conversation. And people who are also able to like throw lights and support others and mentor people through people that you definitely need to reach out to, because they are the ones that definitely will propel your career. And I want to take it a little bit to a different segue. We've spoken now about the path and how you started. You became an accidental project manager, but you were prepared and you had those adaptability skills. But now I want to take it a different direction around the project management office. As you charted the path up to C-suite, the project management office, for people who are actually not aware of that, is the governance space where they look after processes, procedures. Some of them are even more strategic, where they help prioritize projects, where they ensure that they pick the right projects as well. How have you seen the PMI morph, and how can PMs tie their roles as project managers and connect to get into the PMO space to actually elevate and actually accelerate their careers?
That's a very interesting question. And I think we would need to also have a debate. What is actually PMO and what is the right PMO to help to elevate your career? Because I think that not all PMOs probably are the same. I experienced PMOs which were really mostly focused on the process, procedure, kind of like monitoring, tracking, and a lot of administration around launching or closing projects. The problem when the PMO is set up this way, this PMO does not influence decisions. So that means that even if you see that, for instance, the project can be set up differently, the value can be maximized, can be improved, but PMO cannot decide about that because the decision is happening elsewhere and you only execute what was decided, then this type of PMO is probably doesn't probably help you that much. Then I was lucky enough to also work with other offices, and some of them I had to set up by myself, that these were much more focused on value creation and on decision making and advising C-level leaders or board members how you can set up your projects, and I will say, because this is very actual, also how can you set up your agile teams so that the value that you create is better. And then this situation for project management is very different, because then you get the seat at the table. Then you have a real discussion. Then it's not only about reporting if you're in the green or red or orange, but it's about discussing what can we do together, how we can face these projects, how we can change their scope, how we can launch these teams so that we have better benefit. Then the benefit is measured typically like, how do I contribute to the strategy? How do I contribute to the growth or customer satisfaction or quality of our products? And again, for that, this is what I mentioned before, project managers, they need to be able to see that big picture and be able to see the project in the context of other decisions which are made, and then advise. And once you have PMO office, no matter the way how you call it, once you have it set this way, then you have much better chance to be recognized by C-level leaders. Your advice is trusted, is being taken into account, and then you can start being part of that decision-making.
Decision-making is absolutely critical, and I love the fact that you mentioned that, because a lot of the times I see project management is almost like a puzzle piece. And you see the gear where everything actually moves. Like a PM has a project, there's another project, there's another program, there's a portfolio, there's the overall business function that sits there, and then we have the C-level executives who are kind of overseeing everything. Overall, I ask the question and I say, how do you, as a project professional, how does your old little piece of the puzzle, is it connected in a way that by the time yours move, you can actually pull through, and it actually affects as a ripple effect right to the very top? And if you cannot click and have that full connection, there is a problem. You would always just remain exactly where you are. And I love the fact that you mentioned that, Lenka, that way you said you need to be able to have that context that ties to the bigger picture. You need to be able to see beyond just your own project and understand how exactly does this impact strategy? How does it impact even all the other programs? How does it even impact operation? And until you elevate to that actual level, you're going to just remain another project manager or another business analyst. So what differentiates you as a PM, as even a finance, admin, whatever role you play in the organization, it's back to
Mm,
value.
mm.
Value creation is absolutely critical because organizations are in business to add value. And how can you become that catalyst that drives value creation? And I wanted to dive deeper into that particular piece. How have you been able to master the act of value creation? Because a lot of people who are listening to us, they want to become strategic. How did you grow from the 25-year-old who was given a chance to manage a project to a leader who you've actually morphed into today, where you can see value, you can connect the pieces, and you have landed a seat at the table? How can we map and how can people map from that level to where you are today?
Well, so I don't have a silver bullet advice for that, but I can share what I did. So coming back again at my university studies, that was a time where I started to study a discipline which is called business dynamics, or a subset of that discipline is more known and it's called system thinking. And I actually made a master thesis about that. That was for managers, how to improve their decision making based on simulation. Now, the simulation was coming from simulation that was developed by MIT, which was about a real business case, a company that was growing and then it crashed. And everybody was so surprised about that. So they created this like a management simulator. And I played that because I was very intrigued. How do you make decisions that you make your company grow? And I stayed intrigued by this discipline throughout my whole career. So then I was always trying to understand, how do you run your company so that it gets better, bigger, have more happy customers? And then because I was inside that company, I was trying to make that connection between what I'm doing, whether it was a project or something else, and how does it connect to my understanding what would benefit the company. So I always kept this strategic view and understanding of the dynamics of the market, of the inside of the company, which is what I was doing. And then there's another very important element. You can't be afraid to speak up, because I see that when I was younger, I was, I didn't have a great reputation. I was like, oh, Lenka is coming to meeting. There will be again like 1 million questions. But, it's okay to ask questions, and you need to show that, hey, there's something is wrong or something can be done better. And then once you start making these connections, then people notice you, they start to ask you for advice. And this is your chance where you can say, I would suggest to do something differently. So if you are leading projects, it's okay to say, why don't we do this differently? Why don't we change something about this project? You don't have to do it the way that someone else designed it for you, if you believe that it should be, that it should be changed.
I think that's absolutely critical, because at the end of the day, status quo is never going to take you anywhere. You look at people like Jeff Bezos, right? As you said, them IBM and the pieces that they have created over the years, doing things exactly the same way can never differentiate them from the marketplace, right? Eva decided that it was okay before the internet, right? Things were kind of okay. We read books, life seemed okay. And when the internet came, it was like, oh my goodness, is this even possible? And now we talk about artificial intelligence. It's like, what is the world going to be like? But the fact is, the people who become transformational, the people who can actually leave a ding in the wall, as Jeff Bezos would say, are people who are just like you, visionaries, who say, how can we question? How can we create something more unique? How can we help drive value? How can we become the people who can ask those questions? I tell you, just the way like kids, right? You remember, I don't know if you've got kids, but for my little one, like they always asking questions like, okay, why do you have to do this? Okay, why is this and why is that? But these are the fundamental building blocks that helps them become the people, the leaders they actually grow up to be. It's about those questions. And I want to take it another step further around even those constructive questions, right? Where you do your research, you say, I'm going into a meeting. I know that there may be 5 or 3 different approaches, right? How can I help my clients make better decisions? I want to have this key questions I want to ask. You're going to probably validate it with someone else and say, what exactly do you think? And come in packed and prepared to add value. So I love that so much. I hope everyone is taking notes. I have my notes here. I've been writing things down so you actually don't forget. We've spoken about the dynamicity of the marketplace. And that's another piece. When we look at project management, Lenka, people think about just execution. We feel, I have a scope, I have a budget, I have a cost, I have been, told to deliver that project. And people ask and say, Fuller, why should I even think about, market indicators or what's going on outside of my world? I just want to just focus and deliver my project. And then I am like, for you to really be successful, there's so many things that could happen throughout the life cycle of a project that could make your project even invalid, right? It could have been great at the start, but strategic objectives and stuff could have changed through the process based on regulation, based on market indicators, so even based on your competition, where you may not even need to do this product anymore. But you being that person who can ask the right questions, who goes into meetings and says, guess what? I just found that there is a new AI tool, for instance, that could help us maybe with our reporting. So why pay another company to help us create another system when we can just leverage another tool? So how can, project managers create that shift in mindset around being more strategic? How are you able to develop that muscle? I feel it's a muscle that, you have to develop, and you start thinking differently. You start asking different questions. How are you able to build that muscle, Lenka?
Well, you just have to practice. And it's exactly what we were talking about a few minutes ago. It's about asking that question, why? What is it for? Why are we even doing this? How is this going to help us? So when we were talking before about PMO offices, I was saying that I am not that big fan of when PMO office is just like administrative, because what I think is much better when you design your PMO office in a way that is very closely connected to your strategic management team and to your executive leadership team, because then you are tasked like every day to link these projects or activities to strategic objectives. This is the moment when you need to ask, why are we doing this? How it's gonna help us? And by asking this question over and over again, thinking about what is that true value, then you will develop that muscle that we're looking for. Then comes the other piece, and that is like, yes, speak up, like say, let's do it differently. But I think that what is also very important is this continuous education, that, like me, myself, I changed different industries throughout my career. And you need to be able to understand your industry, and you need to be able to understand the dynamics inside of your company, because otherwise it's almost impossible to figure out this value creation if you don't know what your customers are looking for, or if you don't know the process, how the value is actually created through the steps and cooperation by different departments. So you constantly need to learn, listen to your customers, read market research, and doing everything to understand where are you, because you can never determine the value by being blind, and it doesn't come to you. You just need to read, talk to people, understand, and ask questions.
That's really great around, the questioning and learning and continuous improvement. We talk about it all the time. And it's one that just has to be part and parcel of a leader who wants to create that chasm, who wants to actually move to the next level. But one thing I want to ask, thinkers, I know now you built success over the years, but what are the three things you probably wished you knew earlier on in your career that you believe that may have propelled you even faster? What can you share with people to say, if I knew this, if I had this, I would have probably had something even better? What would you say those three things are?
That's really very good question. So first of all, I would say build your network. This is something that I didn't know when I was way younger. So your network is very important for you, because if you think that you would like to progress with your career, then you consciously need to build network of people who are there where you would like to be. And that is for two reasons. First of all, we talked about learning, and you learn from your own experience, but you can also learn from experience of the other people. So if you want to understand, for instance, how executives think, if you want to understand what is important for a CEO, you need to find a way how to talk to executives, how to talk to CEOs. And this is the network that will bring you there. So network is one thing. Then the other thing that I wish that I knew probably sooner is importance of mentoring and just asking for advice. I started my mentoring experience quite late, just like a few years back. If I would have mentored sooner, I think maybe I could progress with my career faster. I don't know. But mentoring is, again, something that is very useful. So if you are younger professional and you want to progress, then just find some organization that provides these mentors and just, go on that journey and use this opportunity to learn from more senior leaders. And then the third advice, and that is again related to learning, networking, and mentoring, and that is I'm just like thinking how to say it properly, but just like
Yeah.
never stop, like never be happy where you are, because if you stop challenging yourself, then you can't grow. So it's really all about like read the books, like follow the leaders. Now we live in the age of social media. That was not like that like 20 years ago. So we have so many opportunities and places where we can observe what leads to success. So just do that, but do that consciously, not randomly. Take notes, and then take it and reflect on yourself. Like, okay, am I doing this? Should I try? Is it helpful for me? Is it moving me somewhere? So never stop learning.
I love it. As people kind of say, like the comfort zone, right? If you are within the comfort zone, then there's a problem. They say you need to get comfortable, right? Being uncomfortable. You need to push the needle every day, doing something more, positioning yourself for that place where you want to get to. Because really, people talk about like the pyramid. Interesting. There's a reason why it gets narrower as you go to the top. Because everyone wants success, but not everyone wants to put in the work that you have, Linka. When you think about it, right? It's easy to say,
Yeah.
yes, I want to be a millionaire in the next 2 years, right? I want to become the CEO of a high or big corporation. But what are the steps that you are doing intentionally, even every day, to take you towards that overall, goal to achieving it? And I think that's a critical piece around the mindset. Knowing that possibility, it's anything that you actually want, as long as you're willing to walk at it. And I was listening to a book just yesterday where someone said, it doesn't matter what the goal is, Linker, be it a small one or a massive one. The common denominator is that it still takes work. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah, it still takes work, right? So you're just need to determine to say, how big do I really want to get? How far do I want to push myself? How far do I want to get to? And put the things in place to do it. But another thing that I really want to share today as well is the fact that you cannot even do it alone. Linker said mentors. You need people who have actually seen and done exactly what you're trying to do. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's an African adage that says there's something that an older person will see from a lower position. And even a little kid, even if they stand up a ladder, they probably still will not see that far. So something that comes with experience that we can definitely leverage. People like Lincoln, you need to reach out to and say, what can I do? I'm thinking about something. Just the same way we had that connection. Build those relationships and make sure that they actually last, longer term. And maybe before I ask the next question, I really want to say this before I forget is, 9 times out of 10, people who want mentors always feel, oh yes, Linker, can you please mentor me? And that's it, and they walk away. How can you make sure that it's always a win-win? How can you ensure that you can also propel and support your mentors as well? So as a mentee, it's not a one-way street where you just come in and just suck off from the leaders. What are you also going to do to give back? How can you support? So anytime Lincoln wants to have time, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm also going to learn something from Paula. I'm also going to learn from that person. So everyone has something unique that you bring to the table. Make those relationships one that you can always give something back. So it's not just a draining, relationship, but it's one that, everyone can actually benefit. So yes, before we get to product lifestyle, I have one that I've been pressing to actually ask. We look at this as well, and we talk about failures. Through your career, they may have been some things that you also have done that you say, goodness, how did I do that? But I know that the power of recovery is one that sets people apart. But I want to hear from you. What are the things that, probably just one thing that you did and you wish you probably would have done differently?
Yeah, there is one. It's still recent. It's still haunting me a little bit. I underestimated communication and stakeholder management. For me, it was also a phase where I kind of like gave up. And I was like, okay, I will just say what I believe should be done. And I knew that it will probably not be accepted. And I also knew at that time that if I do my work properly and really work with all the stakeholders and put more time in explaining them how is it beneficial for them, the result probably would be different. But that was for me a moment when I was losing my patience. And so this is for me a learning point that communication should be never underestimated. Your stakeholders are critical for you, but you need to work on these relationships. You really need to be able to get that feedback if you are clear, if people see the benefit value of what you are doing. And if you want to succeed, you really need to have stakeholders on your side. So in this particular case that I have in my memory, there are ways how I could do it differently.
Fantastic. And we're going to get to that. How can we deal with difficult stakeholders? But this is a perfect segue for project lifestyle. I love the fact that we've been talking about mindset, change, problems, challenging ourselves and getting outside our comfort zone. This kind of feeds into the concept just around systems thinking. Because when we think about the path to senior leadership, I see different connected pieces that come together. But with everything, as you sit and you challenge yourself as a project professional today, you're going to say that there are always different problems, even on my project within my team. How do I tackle it? I want to quickly give you some key strategies that you are going to use to help understand patterns in root causes of issues, because a lot of the times issues and pains are what prevent us from actually breaking through to the next level. Think about it like an iceberg. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg, just at the top. You need to understand the layers underneath a challenge and a problem. And the same applies to us even in our personal life, within your projects. You need to uncover what exactly is causing probably my team not to be functioning well. What's happening that the organization is not moving towards your goals and objectives? Think about it like an iceberg. And the first thing I'll say, step one is what? Define the problem. What are you really seeing as a problem at this particular time? Define that means you do some investigation to understand what's happening and even what could possibly be the impact of that issue. Number two, gather data. Do not just make decisions based on your intuition. That's fine. But gathering data so you can make informed decisions sets you apart as well from just another manager to a better leader. I want you to analyze that information and analyze that data. Understand the patterns. One piece didn't just happen in isolation. There are other connected pieces as well. Understand that. And then you can obviously develop an hypothesis around that and say, does it mean that because we had like 3 failed projects, was it the case that our process or our PMO is probably not strategic enough? Or even your personal life, you think about, why am I having so much issues maybe in my relationships? Is it something even wrong with me as an individual? You need to look inwards and create that hypothesis. Then you can pretty much tie back to that root cause and say, now I see the problem. From the data I gathered from my analysis, you can really tell and say, I can pinpoint where this is coming from. Because a lot of the time it's easy to just point fingers, but on a bigger scale and even our personal life, we need to be able to make informed decisions and trace back what is underneath the iceberg. What is underneath it that's preventing us from achieving the goals that we want? And after you get that, you need to implement. Execution is where what? Where all the possibilities happen. Because you can do all of this great stuff, and if you don't bring it to actualization, then there was really no point even going to the exercise in the first place. So think about that. One, gather, understand the problem, define it, gather data, analyze the information, develop an hypothesis, test it out as well. So you are sure that, oh yes, I think it happened in this situation. What about when it happened in another situation? What was the outcome? You can understand if it's a pattern or if it's just a one-off situation. And then develop and implement the solution. And above all, as we talk about project management, always monitor, evaluate, and continuously improve. I hope that was definitely helpful. I want to come back to my wonderful Lenka. She just mentioned something. She said the things that she has learned based on the fact that she never realized that communication and stakeholder management could actually just veer off so quickly, because a lot of the time we kind of underestimate things, and not really because we do it on purpose, right? You kind of feel that I've got this. I think I've done a little bit, but at times things kind of ripple off and gets even bigger. So what are the things that we can actually leverage, and everyone listening can actually use to ensure that that doesn't happen to them as well?
So I would say that, especially with stakeholders, when you work on harder changes or changes that may cause people to be anxious or to have concerns about results. So I would say you need to really develop that empathy and ability to understand their emotions and detect soon enough that sometimes they will reject or they will want to pause what you are doing, not because it doesn't make sense or it's illogical, but because of their emotions, because there's some fear that the change that you want to deliver is sometimes too big and they are not yet comfortable with that. So for me, for instance, stakeholder management, it was never about just a process and mapping stakeholders and writing down what they are looking for, but it was always so much about understanding the emotions that they have, what they feel about the change. Are they happy? Are they excited? Are they afraid? Are they anxious? Sometimes they get upset. And it's always very important to understand what is behind that. What is the reason for these emotions? Openly address that and try to figure out, okay, so what we can do differently that we make you feel better and more confident in that process, in that change that is happening. And this requires a lot of patience. This requires good communication skills, but it also requires that you establish trust between you and your stakeholders, because without trust, stakeholder management can never be successful. So, don't look at projects only as like, okay, these are the steps. This is where I map something. This is where I analyze something. That is important very much. But it's also about that human side, about that people connection. So don't underestimate emotions. Don't underestimate the fear of change, but also learn how to effectively work with that. And then it requires different set of skills than only technical skills. It requires to be able to coach, to be able to mentor sometimes. It's a lot about listening. It's a lot about understanding. And when we talk about this learning, my favorite thing which I learn is about neuroscience, for instance, because it's all about like how our brain actually works, like what makes us happy, what makes us anxious. And then I try to apply this neuroscience into my work and into my dealing with people. So that would be my advice.
That's awesome. That means it's time for hot sit. We're going to get some questions answered. And I think this is the perfect time for us to actually pick one. I'm going to show this question pretty quickly. I had to write that down. A question from Kiza. Excited to hear about the chief of staff role and Lenka's experience of applying PM principles and practices in her day-to-day life. Okay. So excited to hear about how you apply project management even in your day-to-day life.
Well, you just can't live without that, right? Okay, so first of all, what is chief of staff role? So
Yeah.
that's a role where every day you have to deal with a lot of information, decisions, and you need to be able to track a lot of activities which are happening in parallel. You need to be able to track deadlines. That is essential. So for me, what I do day to day, I have my system. I usually do not show it to people. I don't want to look like a nerd,
Oh my
but
goodness.
but for
You're gonna
this
share
you
with me
need.
though, Linka. I want a piece of that, please.
Well, so first of all, I have very, very strong discipline in tracking, in monitoring deadlines, in categorization, because my job is a lot about communication, but a lot about prioritization. Without prioritization, I would not be able to do anything, because there are always so many information and requests coming, and I need to be able to prioritize. And for that, I need to have that structure in place. I need to prioritize, like, is it important? Is it a hard deadline? Is it important because of the matter of the importance? So for that, you always also need to understand, to be able to prioritize, like, what makes it important. So you need to understand your business, and you need to understand your stakeholders, my colleagues, my boss, of course. I don't know if he's still here, but you need to understand the dynamics in the company, because without that, again, you can't prioritize, and you cannot go like every minute and ask, should I do that or should I do that? You must be able to decide by yourself.
I think that's a key one. Prioritization skill, which you probably have mastered now, is one that has definitely helped you, because there's always going to be 5 billion things that has to be done. But as you said, how can I ensure that this is more important? this is even one that I should focus on right now because of how it impacts the organization. So we definitely need to bring you on so we can focus on prioritization, because it's one piece that would help with time management. It would help with becoming more efficient as well. So let's not dive deep into that. Let's see. What's the next question? We have someone who says, for someone who wants to get into project management, where should I start? And what certifications should I obtain? I think it's pretty easy. Okay.
Well, yeah, so I work for Project Management Institute, so that's pretty easy. Just go visit our website. No, but like seriously. So if you want to start, there are two things, and we talked about that at the very beginning of the podcast. It's your preparation, your knowledge, and then experience. So for knowledge, it's really easy to start because you can pick up some trainings which are really for beginners. Then you can go for CAPM certification, which does not require previous experience in that way as is required, for instance, for more advanced PMP certification. So there are many learning resources. We have wonderful study hall that helps you. So all of that exists. Then what is more interesting, how do I get that experience? And, Fola, when you ask me about that, what I would like to know before sooner that could help me with my career. So I forgot to mention one thing, and that is volunteering. And now I don't mean volunteering inside a company that you say, hey, I would like to participate, put me on that project. I mean real volunteering. When I was living in the United States, I started to understand volunteering, and I started to understand that sometimes it's really hard when you work for a company, you employee, to get that chance to get more responsibility, because your leaders might be questioning, like, is he or she, do they have the right skill set? Can I trust it? That then when I give them more responsibility, will they prove themselves or not? So how do you get that more responsibility? And one way is really engage yourself in volunteering with different organizations, always PMI, where you give that chance and you start gaining your own experience on the job that you would not maybe be able to land at that time in your own company. So you build that experience, you connect it with your knowledge, you can validate that by the right certification, and then you're ready again for the next step. But when you combine knowledge and experience, you can easily demonstrate, I am ready, I can do that because, I already did that.
100%. I say, to land the job that you want, it's all about demonstratable experience. A hiring manager wants a person who they are sure, at least they feel that you can get the job done. And how can you prove that? Is by showing ways that you've actually done that in the past, right? Although they say past experience might not be a full consideration for you to feel that the person can actually do exactly that. But the fact that it already tells you that, goodness, I have seen Lenka create outcomes. I've seen that she's actually strategic. And so when I want to pull her in to come in and do a conference that talks about strategic project leadership, it's easy for me because you've demonstrated that. And it's pretty much almost like a secret, right? Just go volunteer. Get a role and, raise your hands up and actually do it without getting paid. You have the title as well. You can officially get that title on board. Oh my goodness, Lenka, I cannot even say thank you enough. I want to appreciate you for your time. It's been fun. I remember the conversation we had on your trip at the airport. You've actually shown yourself not just as a leader in words, but also in deeds. You demonstrated it. And that's kind of what I connect with as well, even for the people who you've supported and you continue to support. I want to applaud you. I want to say thank you so much. And I want other people to actually know, how can they connect with you?
How can people connect with me? Well, it's very easy. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. I try to respond to messages. We talked about mentoring though, and I will use this opportunity to say that, yes, I do mentor. However, I do not mentor based on individual request. I work with nonprofit organizations who do pairing of mentors and mentees, because otherwise I would probably be overloaded. So if you're looking if you look for mentoring, the best way is to find the right organization who will pair you. Maybe you will be lucky and you will be paired with me. But if you just want some advice or just like a short exchange, then feel free to message me on LinkedIn.
I can definitely assure you that she's definitely going to respond to you. You need to connect. I want to say thank you so much for your time today. And above all, as I always make everyone aware of, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. from Pierre Lamore, the CEO of PMI, who was here, to Jerry Meyer, to even users who actually want to be anonymous. I can see all of you on here. I want to say thank you, Topster. Oh, my brother-in-law was even online today. Even Priva from India, people from London, all over the globe have actually joined in to be part of this conversation today. I want you to take one action. What is one thing that you're going to be taking away from today's conversation? Because above everything, we can keep learning. But until we apply what we've actually learned for it to become intelligence, we will never get the outcome that we want. Lenka has spoken about adaptability, being able to show up and lead. She spoke about how she's learned about different organizations, how the business strategy, connecting on to understand how CEOs even think. I remember hearing this a while ago to say, you want to become a CEO or get a C-suite? What do C-suite leaders actually eat for breakfast? Do you know that? I'm just joking. But seriously, you need to really understand all of this. Take action today. But don't do this alone, because they say when you get a good idea, you need to share. Share this with someone. Let another person know that you benefited from this conversation so we can actually keep the momentum going over the strategic project leader. I want to say thank you so much. But remember, you are the best project you can actually ever work on. You are the best project you can ever work on. Take steps daily and make your life's project count. But I want to leave you with this. Jeff Bezos says that he wants to make a ding in the universe. But I want leaders who are going to become strata catalysts, ready to make a bigger impact so we can actually make a positive dent in the universe, because together, possibilities actually abound, the multiplicity effect. Let's come together. Let's do this. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Next week, we're going to have a dynamic leader as well, who is going to be sharing their hearts. We're going to give you strategies. And you get this just for free. But what we want you to do is actually to implement this, take action. And so we can say, I remember the turning point, May the 13th, after Lenka came on the Strategic Project Leader Show, that this happened for me. I want to say thank you so much, and I cannot wait to see you next week, same time. Have yourself a good one.